Hey, welcome to the second post in my series on team dynamics. Last time I talked about solving issues that crop up in your app-based startup. I talked about how teams at any given time have a set level of competency, how good they are, and that's not something you can quickly change, hiring people. And I went on to talk about motivation, trying to do that with pep talks or even worse, browbeating your team members. It doesn't get to the root of the actual problems. Now, in those previous talks, I presented the triangle model. That triangle represents the throughput of your team. How much features can they deliver? But I talked about how it's the base of that triangle, that communication, that often winds up being the limiting factor for how much your team is getting done. We talked about motivation and competence being important when managed at the right time, but an issue, things go wrong in your startup, and that's not the right time to be taking that browbeating approach. Now, in this session, I'm going to drill down a little bit more into communication, and I want to look at an anti-pattern. I call this one the Flaming Limousine. This is a tech team dynamics misstep that nearly always derails a high-performance team working on a project. And when someone new has leadership responsibilities in an app startup team, at the beginning, they kind of wind up flying by the seat of their pants. I don't want to discount the importance of being authentic or going with your gut, but it's good to get ahead of that and train those instincts so that when you're under pressure, you'll do productive, solution-focused things. So imagine you're riding down the highway in the back seat of a luxury limousine, but it seems like it's out of control. It's slamming into the guardrails and flames are pouring out from under the hood. You're on the team, so you call out and you say, "Hey, it's on fire." But instead of listening to what you're saying, the driver says, "What's your problem? You're in a luxury limousine." So you say, "Look, watch out. You're slamming into the guardrails." And the driver responds, "Stop complaining and have another drink from the minibar." As a team member, you know your team has become a flaming limousine when your accurate observations about actionable issues are written off by referring to company perks or workplace culture. "Hey, remember the celebration we just had for the last milestone? I can't believe you're complaining already." "We're a huge supporter of that idea here at Company X. What's your problem?" So in a flaming limousine, teams' serious concerns are, by implication, just dismissed as being self-serving complaints. Signals from the team about important information are missed, and the project gets impacted by risks that could have been avoided. So for a new app startup, it's difficult to manage input from the team when it challenges those traditional lines of communication. And it's even more difficult for folks who are new to leadership, or at least new to app startup decision making. When problems are pointed out at a time that they're not ready for, or the team is not really resourced to deal with them, it can be hard. So how do you manage it? What do you do instead? Do you have more beer on Friday night? Buy the team a foosball table? Or how do you handle this problem? Do you treat the issue as a brush fire that you need to hose down? Or do you see it as a challenge to those team structures on your org chart? Those are flaming limousine responses. Sure, it's nice to do those things, but they're not a solution to the real problem. Buy that foosball table to celebrate the real fixes. The most important skills to avoid becoming a flaming limousine are active listening, note-taking, a mastery of team dynamics, and prioritization. So let me just go through those. Active listening employ that to make sure that you reflect back to your team members with the information that you're hearing. Now, you can always do this, even if you feel like it risks derailing the current team ritual, meeting, or cadence. When you are listening, make sure that everybody in the team who wants to speak is heard without anyone interrupting, and that includes you. Listen, but make sure that folks are succinct. Once someone has spoken, the chance to speak moves on. And that's on you as a leader to make sure that happens. But you're employing that active listening, you're reflecting back what you have heard as a leader, summarizing it, getting into their shoes and understanding what they are saying the stakes are. Why is it important? What is the priority? Now, all of that can be done quickly, that active listening. It doesn't need to derail the current meeting. Use your note-taking to ensure that you capture what you understand. So if this current meeting or ritual is the correct place for the issue to be resolved, then do it right away. Otherwise, what you can do is utilize your note-taking. You can ask the person who brought the issue up to create a meeting at the earliest opportunity that matches the priority for this issue. The person should also check in with the participants in a written form prior to that new meeting and give them a one-pager on the background to the issue. So thinking about team dynamics, sometimes even just drawing up that one-pager will actually help resolve the issue before the meeting takes place. It's sort of a useful approach here to have the person calendarize the meeting. If the matter can be resolved before then, that meeting, it can just be called off. However, that meeting date, it forms a forcing factor to ensure that the issue does get dealt with, and your team will build trust when they know that you're actioning the issue. That note-taking activity can tell your team that, hey, yes, I have understood, I've received and gotten what you've said, and I've got my notes here so that we will action it. If the team members respect each other's contribution, that approach should avoid the issue derailing the current meeting, and then you can continue on with whatever that meeting was. I'm going to do another session on the issue of respecting team members' knowledge. But if it's necessary, and this really is a hair on fire issue, maybe cancelling the current meeting and dealing with the issue straight away is the right thing to do. Prioritisation. How important is this problem that your team member has brought up? Well, a very useful document to deal with the kinds of issues I'm talking about is the RAIDS document, and check in the show notes. I will put a link to an example for this. It's risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies. So those RAIDs, you can log those just using a wiki or whatever you have available. And you have a line item for each one of these RAIDs issues. So you can take your notes that you've listened to your team member, and you can get it documented into that RAIDs document. And then you can do a bring up on that on a fortnightly basis to just check in with that issue and see if it needs to be dealt with, what the current status of it is. It makes sure that it's not being forgotten. Each line item can show just a short normative name, description, date, who it was raised by, and what the final resolution was. Sometimes a line item is too complex to just squeeze into a table. Then you can use a solutions options document or even a high-level design document and link to it from that RAIDS line item. Whatever you actually do with those issues raised by the team members, that vital first step is that active listening to tell the people that, hey, yes, I am receiving your message. You're not just stuck in a flaming limousine. You can take the steps then to identify the correct forum and the right timing, what the prioritization is. And as I mentioned, sometimes listening and recording, that can be enough. especially once you have the trust of the team. But whatever you do, avoid that trap of thinking that team members' concerns are just a complaint to be managed or dismissed. That is poisonous to the team, and you can't replace trust with company culture, beer nights, and foosball tables. You cannot use the company budget to buy back the trust that you've lost by failing to listen to your team. All right, I hope this has been helpful. This has been Totally a Thing, and I am Sarah Smith. We'll see you in the next one.